time to get in the huddle with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on the Mass Steel Podcast.
This thing belongs to Mr. Roney, belongs here, and let's see if we can bring this damn thing back here next year, along with the Super Bowl. Here we go.
The game is over. The Pittsburgh Steelers did it the hard way.
With the 10th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Devin Bush, linebacker, Michigan.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast. Here, we're, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey, and we are kicking off. As everyone has saw my Instagram and Facebook story earlier today, the NFL mourns the loss of a great one and lives a beautiful life. Many of us who are very lucky to even get this high in age, at the age of 90 years old, the one and only two-time Super Bowl champion, coach of the Miami Dolphins, who also began his career as a Baltimore Colt, and who Chuck Noll was an assistant under, the one and only Don Shula. He has finally passed away this morning. The conditions of his death the cause of death was unknown at this time, but he has pieced away at his home in Florida. And real sad to see this guy be taken away right now. But you got to figure our time is always going to be coming where it comes to like how long we're going to be on this life, how much great things a lot of us can get to achieve at the time. If there's one thing about Don Shula, I will definitely say first and foremost, and just growing up, watching some of his games or just watching history film on him, one thing you can never take away from Don Shula is this. He was always very detail-oriented. That's the thing. I mean, this guy right there, even during his perfect season, I mean, you hear some of his players from America's Game would even say that they would win a game that was literally like 50-0, like an insane blowout. And he'd still be picky about like some of the little things they missed. Why is that? Don Shula really cared about every little aspect, every little detail he could find, every little edge he could find as a competitor, as a coach. And a lot of people would tell you on that 1972 Miami Dolphins team. We actually heard, I think earlier today, Larry Zonka, who's on ESPN, I mean, just pretty much poured his heart and soul out for the guy and just why they were so successful in both those Super Bowl wins, including that perfect season. The only perfect coach in NFL history. But let's not forget, before that time, Don Shula, remember, early on in his NFL football career, he started off as a player. They both came from head coach Paul Brown. And, I mean, you look at a guy like Don Shula, who really picked up on the game of coaching very quickly, might I add. I mean, this guy was definitely a savant, an aggressive, an attacker. I mean, you look at some of the qualities like in basketball that make guys like Michael Jordan or how he draws comparisons to Kobe Bryant, just savvy. As a coach, he was definitely a guy who was willing to win at all costs in his time. I mean, he set the standard. I thought he was truly one of the A-plus students of NFL football coaches. He started at a young age of 33 years old back in 1963. And he went on to coach for 33 seasons in the NFL with a career win-loss record, 347 victories, and 173 losses and 6 ties. That was his career overall. He passed George Halas, as everyone remembers, back in 1993 in Philadelphia against the Eagles. And you look at all the stuff that he's did ever since. Like I said, he was a guy who paid a lot of attention to detail. I mean, he definitely wanted his players to know. He wanted his players to work harder. And when you look at a guy like Chuck Noll, who was also an assistant on that Baltimore Colts team, remember, Chuck Noll began his career in the AFL under Sid Gilliam. He later on went to join Don Shula and the Baltimore Colts towards the end of the 60s. And one of the things that they were most infamously remembered together for was losing the upset game to the New York Jets in Super Bowl 3. The very first game that an AFL team had beaten an NFL franchise. Both men were a part of history. I guess I could say somewhat for the wrong reason at that point. Don Shula, by that time, he was already 0-2 in big-time championship games. He already lost a championship game back in his second season, I think, back in 1964. So this is a guy right here who is like still finding his identity as a coach, trying to win big. He later on went on to coach the Miami Dolphins, but there was a little bit of a controversy storyline right there in itself. And I believe that the original Colts owner, who was at the time was running the Baltimore Colts, he was on vacation. And I think right then, too, Joe Robbie, I believe it was, the guy who lured Don Shula in back in 1970, at the conclusion of the 1969 season where the Colts failed to miss the playoffs. So he went over there, kind of like offered them a job, and pretty much Don Shula accepted and kind of went on his ways right there. And there it all happened. He became a game changer for that franchise in so many ways. And Miami, like Dan Lebatard was saying, it was like a beach for a bunch of old people at that time. It wasn't really a lot, remember, going on in Florida at that time. As he was doing an interview earlier today on ESPN. And Don Shula was definitely like a god to Miami, believe it or not. And what he's did for the franchise over there, I mean, success. I mean, you think about all the greats that followed too, like later on in like the sports culture. I mean, look at a guy like Pat Riley right there, who actually came over well with the Lakers. He was famous for them. Brief stint with the Knicks, came over with the Miami Heat. Also brought some of that championship, swagger over to the Heat basketball organization. I mean, delivering them 3 NBA championships. So you look at the expectation, the bar that was set high for a guy like Shula, and what he's did. He was a guy who definitely looked for a lot of accountability, but also he was one of the guys, too, earlier on in his career, he wasn't afraid to run the ball, which a lot of people and teams were doing earlier on when the National Football League started. It was more about having a good running game and defense, which is one of the things that I always trace to the history of this league. AFL was just one of the first leagues that was able to open up the air attack with the passing game and break open the offense a little bit more and crank it up a notch. That's what they did. But, later on, when he also got Dan Marino, too. Which Dan Marino, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they passed on back in the 1983 NFL draft. And look at what happened. Needless to say, Shula right here, he's definitely faded away within the last 10 years, I would safe to say, where we rarely saw him make any TV interviews or do any TV appearances. If anything, he was more being shown on documentaries on NFL Network. And of course, I mean, you got like your YouTube and Spotify. I mean, that's one thing. But you definitely tell that he wasn't really in the best of health. And I think one of the things that definitely followed him for a long time, he always seemed to have the back issues similar to Chuck Noll. And I mean, a cool little thing about them too, they grew up in Ohio. I mean, in their career, and did a lot of fun things together. I mean, when you look at it, as far as like going to like a similar school right there, growing up. I mean, those are just two important guys with success built in. I mean, like I said, when you think of Don Shula, you can't also help but think of Chuck Noll, who actually passed away 6 years earlier at the age of 82. I mean, Don Shula, he's given everything to this league, and like I said, I thought he was like truly one of the original winners of this game before you had Chuck Noll. I mean, have his moment of sun. Was slowly rebranding and rebuilding a new attitude in Pittsburgh, which they haven't experienced in a long time. They've only been in one playoff appearance back in the late 1940s. I believe that was 47 or 48. Never winning a playoff game. First playoff appearance, they win, which a lot of people in the opposition, more particularly the Raiders, would question the Immaculate Reception. They call it the Immaculate Deception in their eyes. But still, I mean, you look at what each man meant to their franchise and the culture right there. Because let's face it, the Steelers for the longest time, they were on their misery for such a while. It was not one of the teams a lot of people wanted to play for. I mean, you even think too, I mean, with that being said, I mean, even Mean Joe Green was like kind of cursing under his breath, like thinking, why did I have to come over here? They were 84 games under 500 by the time Dan Rooney got a little bit more involved in the picture. Decided to go on with trusting to hire Chuck Noll, and then later drafting on Mean Joe Green. 84 games over 500. Since then, they did an about face. And they won 471 victories, 308 losses, and 3 ties. 163 games over 500. That's how much they meant. And like I said, I think in some ways, many can make the argument here that Don Shula had a hand in helping the Steelers get to where they are. Let's be honest. Don Shula was one of the people who highly recommended Chuck Noll to come over to the Steelers franchise, the organization. He went to bat for the guy. Can you imagine if the Steelers did not have Chuck Noll starring in their franchise? The point I'm trying to make is this. Chuck Noll and Don Shula went hand in hand together at some point in their NFL careers. I mean, what for a guy like Shula, who's also played in the league for 7 years and did it as a coach. Like I said, he right now, I mean, I think he has his 2 sons right now, Michael. I want to say the other one is Dave Shula. Don Shula, he was just one of the true original face of the NFL. When you think of guys like Vince Lombardi, then of course, like I said, you think of Tom Landry, which, by the way, who were like the 2 other guys right there. I mean, who had a multitude of success with the most playoff victories. I believe Don Shula was third in that category with 19. And it's just incredible. It's just really been a beautiful life. Like I said, I mean, you wonder when things are going to come over and come to an end. But, yeah, I mean, there's where you at that. I mean, he's pretty much survived right now by his wife, Marianne Shula. He married her back in 1993, the same year, by the way, which he became the all-time winningest head coach in the National Football League. And I believe that was 315 victories he got at that time. So I want to ask you real quickly, how would you connect the dots right now of a guy like Don Shula to Chuck Noll as it relates to the Steelers being bridged together? Where do you rank a guy like Don Shula amongst your all-time greatest of head coaches? And I posted this up on Twitter earlier today. And here are the results what I had on here. I said either top 3, top 5, or top 10. I have a unanimous voting poll of top 3 all time, which is fair. I mean, he like I said, that guy has just did so much for the Dolphins and everyone around that culture. And you just got to believe right now, I mean, it's like, wow. It is just so incredible here what he's meant to the game and then also being a member of the NFL 100 team. You could not have the NFL 100 team without Don Shula having his hand on everything, what he's contributed to the game. Remember, he was also a member of the NFL competition committee for a long while, too. Guy only had 2 losing seasons in his coaching career. And, boy, I tell you, this guy was an epitome of greatness, accountability, whatever you want to say about the guy. If you guys want to feel free and dial in or text into the show on the Mad Steel Podcast. Number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that's 312-209-2232. You can also follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richey and Steel CJR. Then you can also follow me at OnDeckCSR. Then you can also check me out on my YouTube channel, which I'm streaming live on right now, Men of Steel Podcast. And then for all the latest Men of Steel podcasts and On Deck shows, you can also check me out on Mixcloud, Charles Prodigy Richey. And then Anchor and Spotify, Crunch Time with Charles Prodigy Richey. Like I said, I want to hear your thoughts, your comments. What did Don Shula mean to you and the NFL? I want to hear you. Where do you rank him up there amongst the all-time greats of this game who have coached in here? I want to hear from you. Feel free to leave your comments in the Facebook page as well. The page simply to be found is Men of Steel Podcast. That's Men of Steel Podcast. As we get ready to continue on this epic Monday here and paying tribute to the one and only Don Shula and the Shula Dolphins and NFL family, losing such a great one today as here. And even earlier today on 93.7 The Fan, I was listening earlier too, when you look at it. I mean, there's such great admiration from a guy like Art Rooney, who reflects, by the way, on his grandfather, Art Rooney, going with the hire on him. I mean, for this guy, I mean, he was just so, and his family, while maintaining the greatest succession of success. He's a family guy all and through. Not too many people could manage juggling both those eggs or those baskets. And I got to tell you, if I ever had a favorite, like a Don Shula memory of all time where I could think of him, one game I'll famously remember him for, and this was well after his years away in the Super Bowl, but this was Dan Marino. I'm going to go 1994 in the Meadowlands against the New York Jets. It was already a season removed where Dan Marino was lost for the rest of the season. I think he got himself hurt against the Browns. They had a real good team. Don't forget, about 2 years earlier, they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game, only to lose to the eventual AFC champion Buffalo Bills. And it could not finish the deal right there. They're at home in the AFC Championship game. Losing, they had them right there. And that was one of the teams that he could not figure out in the playoffs against Marv Levy and those Bills. Always seemed to give him fits. But at the same time, too, I mean, Shula, wow, I mean, he was the guy. He was an A-plus student of coaches when I look at this guy. When I look at his records and everything he's done on that, and I'll post it on my Facebook page and my Twitter and Instagram. Definitely want to see how that turned out, but definitely sad and just time to see a guy go. But at the same time, he definitely left a legacy, no matter how you slice it, and what he's meant for this game. So as we transition right now, let's go on to some other news here in the NFL. As ESPN's Adam Schefter tweeted out on Twitter that NFL Public Relations Brian McCarthy, who can be followed on social media on Twitter at NFL PR guy, announced that the preseason schedule will be announced by the end of the week. The NFL is still preparing to resume business as normal. As many of you may remember, I mean, around last week at this time, we heard that the NFL was trying to prepare, getting ready for games as late as October, and how that was going to pan out. The only thing is with that is, I mean, a lot of leagues right now are taking notes from each other and with advice from the health officials, how they're going to maintain interaction in empty arenas. I mean, one of the things that's been brought up, I heard this too, even from the NBA. I mean, even so, they have with the cameraman, for example. I think they're going to only have one cameraman on standby and use some remote cameras as an example and shoot from different virtual angles, remote cameras. One of the things we've been hearing. Another thing is too, athletes who are getting ready for the game, if they bring anything that they touch, like their cell phones, they'll have to separate them for their cell phones temporarily to make sure they're properly sanitized and good health before they compete. So all the little practices like that, I imagine, is going to get highly more emphasized going into games if we're going to even see a season next year. It's still a lot of unknown, but I applaud a lot of these leagues for trying to feel like they got to deliver something for the benefit of people who actually do depend on this. I mean, I know that's always going to be the biggest argument. It's how are you going to resume anything if you have no cure for this pandemic? But at the same time, too, I mean, I think it is wise to feel like right now, just like anything in life, even with jobs, I don't think anyone could just sit around here and just do nothing all this time. It's not going to always be the healthiest of relationships in a way. At some point, everyone's going to have to readapt and move on somehow and practice living a smarter, healthy life. I mean, if anything, it's taught us to be a lot more aware, a lot more focused on things more close than our families, other priorities. It's definitely taught a lot of people the simplest of discipline during these times. So I'm not so sure right now. I mean, there's a lot of mixed emotions on that. I mean, with the preseason schedule, when we don't know what else is going to happen until that point in time. But I mean, like I said, the best thing, like they always say in life, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. You have to try something at this point. Because what's going to happen for like next season then? Either way, something you're feeling ramifications for down the road, like my co-host on deck, Reese Ruler, who was saying, I mean, like with the NBA, for example, something's going to be affected if you don't do something right now. And we'll see how this works out. I mean, we're actually just finally learning about NASCAR and golf barely coming back. And I think there's some baseball overseas in Korean baseball, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So let's just stay tuned on that, see how these work out, and we'll all go from there. I just don't feel like anyone wants to be living in fear. I mean, what choice do we have? Also, too, as written by Dale Lolley of DK Pittsburgh Sports, the NFL has also announced to the league for their international games that they're going to be having. And it seemed like they're going to be having like about 4 games, which 4 teams were going to be the home team. And Dolphins, Jaguars, Cardinals, and who was the other one? And Falcons be home teams for playing in Azteca in Mexico City, and of course in London at Tottenham Hotspur and Wembley Stadium. So there's going to be no international games played this year, which is definitely a smart move by the league right now. I know they've been flirting a long time, for a lot of years too. I mean, every now and then, playing games, trying to expand the sport globally. Right now, it's definitely not the right time to think about picking it up. But I mean, the Steelers, by the way, who's been going to bat so hard to try and get a game in Mexico City, especially, which hasn't happened yet. I gotta believe once everything calms down, that'll be a matter of time. I would love to see one down there. It's only inevitable. But right now, I mean, how do you guys feel about a season going on as scheduled? I mean, are you guys okay with the fact right now that we could see a season end as late as February 28th for the Super Bowl? It's so beyond the realm of possibility that the season may start off on time. I know a lot of people who are tuning into this and probably looking at like a head scratcher right now. It's like we don't have all the answers, true, but I mean, what else can you really think at this point, other than it's better that we at least try and experiment. Make sure we're practicing all of the medical guidelines. Make sure we're getting all the athletes checked. I mean, I even criticized a guy like Dana White about a month ago when he was having like one of his MMA events. I think it was his events on ESPN Plus. I forget if it was a pay-per-view or not. I think it was, but he was so where they did all the research. They were building it proper facility where it's away from a lot of people, and that they're going to get people tested smoothly. And I really thought at first when I heard that it was a little bit forcive, especially when ESPN asked them to stand pat on it. But looking back in hindsight, I mean, a lot of people are going to think about, is it really all about just trying to get your ratings in there that bad? You need the profit? And you're going to risk a lot of these guys going out. But again, like Bob Papiani points out, if we're just sitting around here and waiting, nothing's really getting done. And you can't go on like that in life. I mean, people are looking at them right now as a big measuring stick, as a good example during these times about how to conduct things. And you have to give him his credit at the end of the day. And I think that's why a lot of people have been encouraged by what he's put on here, or at least trying to regroup things. And this was a quote in regards to the international games, according to NFL Executive Vice President, Chief Strategy and Growth Officer Christopher Halpin. After considerable analysis, we believe the decision to play all our games domestically this season is the right one for our players, our clubs, and all our fans in the U.S., Mexico, and UK. We greatly appreciate the support of our governmental and stadium partners in Mexico and the United Kingdom, who all agree with this decision, and we look forward to returning for games in both countries in the 2021 season. So let's wait and see. That's still a little bit of a stretch, but we'll find out. But I'm on board with it. And it's a lot of scary stuff going on right now where it's, I mean, I even had a friend tell me right now it's possibly with some of the meats that we're eating that could be a potential concern, that just to find out what's happening, where this is being spread. I will cringe on that big time if that were to get in there. Also, too, here's another interesting topic right now. Now with the new CBA being ratified. Now, remember, prior to this, TJ Watt, I mean, he's already got his fifth-year option picked up for 2021. Remember, they picked it up last week. And he was one out of five guys altogether who got his first-round rookie contract picked up for his fifth year. The other guys who got turned down were guys like Bears quarterback Mitchell Trubisky, Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette, 49ers defensive lineman Solomon Thomas, and Titans wide receiver Corey Davis. A lot of teams right now, I mean, according to Dale Lolley, doesn't feel like they're actually worth the value of what they'd be paying for their fifth year. In Trubisky's case, he's scheduled to have a $25 million increase. The Bears just already announced this past weekend that they are not going to be picking up his fifth-year option since they already got Nick Foles on the quarterback depth chart. And pretty much he's going to be playing backup and possibly could be the starter at some point during the season or at the start of the season. I mean, right now, it's signaling a lot of times for these guys right now. Because you even heard Leonard Fournette. I mean, for them to be offered for teams, especially with the Steelers' case, where they could have given up their second-round 49 pick overall and traded up for the 73rd overall pick, had two third-round picks, you'd still only have one in the top 100, but you'd be getting a running back who would be on his last year of his rookie deal, and you have to make a decision soon if you're going to keep him around or you're going to pay him. And then also another thing, too, like our remote said a couple weeks ago, it's like, even if they were to acquire him, you're talking about affecting some communications in the offense or some sort of rhythm you're trying to reestablish, which is not the best of things. TJ Watt is pretty darn special. Where the interesting part comes in is with the 2018 draft class, with a guy like Terrell Edmunds, who had a decent rookie year, in my opinion. I mean, his tackles definitely went up significantly in the following year, the second season. But when you got guys on the cusp who are going to be looking for their money, where it's like TJ Watt or even Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah Fitzpatrick is probably more of a shoe-in to get his fifth-year option picked up for the Steelers. And he is pretty darn special. He's created a moxie for that team. But I'm still a little bit concerned right there once teams did figure him out down the stretch. But even still, I mean, you got him at a very young age. And I got to believe he's going to be sticking around for a while. But I think right now, I mean, you're more than likely to move on from him. And you also got guys who have been not drafted in the first round, like James Conner, Juju Smith-Schuster. And you got to be thinking about decisions on them as well coming up. More than likely, I mean, the theory seems to be around here, according to Ed Bouchette, that they're not going to be sticking around. Both guys are more than likely going to be gone. So let's get into some fair or foul right now to close out the show. Fair or foul topic number 1. Terrell Edmunds, since the new CBA, where they're going to start evaluating first-round picks, by the way. So just to point one thing out, it's no more once you're going into like your fourth year or whatever. It's usually after like 3 years. So like the year before your fifth year, it's not going to work when they pick up the fifth option like that. The way they're going to do it is after 3 seasons being played. They're going to base it off of like where like they deem a player worthy of a fifth year option for being a first round pick. So my question to you guys, do you guys see right now Terrell Edmunds, who got drafted in the 2018 NFL draft, do you see him being picked up on this deal? Do you see him getting his fifth-year option? I'm going to have to say no for right now. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, in 2020, I mean, he's already going to be making about over $1.45 million. And the Steelers are already going to be having a cap hit of $2.91 million. And then the following season, he'll be making $1.94 million. So you're going to be making a little bit of over $3 million combined in your next 2 years when you think about things. I'm not so sure if he's going to be this lucky this time around. I'm going to say foul. I'm going to say for those to not pick up his option, I'm going to say fair. He's going to be moved on from. Unless he does something significant this year. The problem is you're going to be having some money that they're going to have to spread around. Or you're going to have to ask more guys to take pay cuts. And TJ Watt, you better darn sure believe him and his age are going to be coming to the table, I mean, looking for a high-rated deal to be taken care of. So only time will tell on that. And then the last topic right here in fair or foul, we'll see a season October 18th. I'll say fair for right now. Until we see anything otherwise, still keeping the faith. Things will pan itself out. But it is still wait and see for a lot of things right now. And nobody knows. But I got to believe they're doing everything they can, the best practice. And the reason why I say that, when I look at how the NFL handled the draft this year, the virtual draft, they're going to be okay. For some reason. I think they're going to find a way to make this thing as productive and keep the athletes safe as best they can. I'd be interested to see how much this new CBA is going to help take care of them for a lot of their concerns and needs going forward. So that's going to do it for today's show of the Man of Steel podcast. Just want to thank those of you who took the time to tune in. Again, you catch me every Mondays and Wednesdays here at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richey, at Man of Steel CJR, at OnDeckCSR. Same for Instagram, with the Man of Steel podcast being tweaked to at Man of Steel Nation. It's a little bit different from my Twitter. You can also check out my YouTube channel, Man of Steel Podcast. Then look me up also on Mixcloud, Anchor, and Spotify. Charles Prodigy Richey and Crunch Time with Charles Prodigy Richey. And also, too, by the way, I put up another poll yesterday, and we still got like 1 day left to vote, so feel free to vote by the end of tomorrow. And the poll that I got right now with the Steelers not pursuing a backup quarterback behind Ben Roethlisberger, knowing that the Saints have already signed Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal, Andy Dalton gets a 1-year deal. Cam Newton is still available, but the only problem is with Cam Newton, he clearly said he does not want to go anywhere to be a backup. He wants to be a starter. So what's your level of concern right now? Are you guys calm, concerned, or in panic mode right now? And right now, a lot of people are leading the poll with being calm at 46.2%. So feel free to go check out my Twitter page at Man of Steel CGR. Feel free to check on the link. Feel free to share a vote. I would like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to see where this ends by the end of the day tomorrow. Make sure to go look me up on Twitter at Man of Steel CGR. Vote on the poll right now. Your level of confidence right now with the Steelers choosing not to pursue a backup quarterback currently behind Ben Roethlisberger. I want to hear what option you want to vote on, and I look forward to hearing results. As always, Ava, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.